All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're cracking open a book that wasn't just a business bestseller, it was a cultural phenomenon. We're talking about Donald Trump's 1987 memoir, The Art of the Deal. We're going to break down the philosophy that really defined an entire era of deal making.
Okay, so right out of the gate, the book hits you with its main idea in this one quote. It says, "Deals are my art form. I like making deals, preferably big deals. That's how I get my kicks." And that single idea that business can be a form of art really sets the stage for everything else.
You have to remember, this came out way back in 1987, and it was pushing this idea that business isn't just a simple transaction. No, it's a performance. So let's pull back the curtain and really get into the core strategies from this incredibly influential book. So first, let's just talk about that foundational mindset, this whole idea of deals as an art form. The first thing you notice is that the book kind of throws the old school business manual right out the window. It argues that making great deals isn't about following some rigid formula. It's about instinct, it's about creativity, and it's about having this, relentless drive. The message is clear. It's a gut feeling, not just something you learn in a classroom. So, how does a philosophy like that actually translate into action? Well, that brings us to the real meat of the book, the core strategies. The book calls them the elements of the deal, but you can think of them as the trump cards. The book lays out this pretty clear roadmap. Now, there are a bunch of principles in there, but we're going to zero in on 4 of the absolute biggest ones. Think big, protect the downside, use your leverage, and get the word out. All right, principle number 1 is all about ambition. As the book puts it, if you're going to be thinking anyway, you might as well think big. The argument here is that most people just think small, that they're actually afraid of success. So if you're the one who's bold enough to go after those huge monumental goals, you've already got a massive advantage. Okay, now this next one is a little counterintuitive. The book says, "I believe in the power of negative thinking." But this isn't about being pessimistic. It's actually a risk management strategy. The idea is, if you plan for the absolute worst-case scenario and you know you can survive it, then, as the book says, the good will always take care of itself. And that leads us to what the book claims is the ultimate source of strength in any negotiation: leverage. Leverage is having something the other guy wants, or better yet, needs, or best of all, simply can't do without. So the message is you have to find, or even create, something that the other side absolutely has to have. That's where your power comes from. And finally, there's the masterful use of the media. The book is really blunt about it. If you are a little different or a little outrageous, the press is going to write about you. The argument it makes is that from a pure business perspective, all that attention, even negative attention, creates buzz and ultimately value. Okay, so theory is one thing, but how does this all play out in the real world? Well, the book gives us the perfect case study: the creation of Trump Tower. The whole story of Trump Tower is laid out as the ultimate example of these principles in action. We're talking about a multi-year saga of piecing a site together, playing politics, and then selling the dream. This is where the theory gets a real-world test. So it all starts with thinking big. You can't just build a world-famous tower anywhere, right? You need the perfect location, and this wasn't just one simple purchase. Not at all. The book describes it as putting together a giant, high-stakes jigsaw puzzle, starting in 1978, securing the main building, then partnering for the land, then going after those critical air rights, and finally snagging the last little piece of the property next door. And right in the middle of that puzzle, we get a textbook example of using your leverage. To build as big as he wanted to, the project absolutely needed the air rights above the iconic Tiffany & Co. store right next door. And getting them, according to the book, took a classic leverage play. So how do you create that leverage? Well, the book lays out the pitch to Tiffany's owner as having 2 very different sides. On the one hand, there was the carrot, the promise of a beautiful, dramatically handsome structure. But then there was the stick, the threat of building what's described as a hideous 80-story box that would just tower over their famous store if they didn't sell those rights. And it worked.
The book says the deal was closed for $5 million, but they weren't just buying air. What they were really buying was the potential to build a much, much larger and far more profitable tower.
Okay, so they had the site, but that's only half the battle. Now you've got to win over the public, win over the city officials, and that's where another key principle comes in, getting the word out to shape that public story.
A huge moment, as the book tells it, came from Ada Louise Huxtable. She was the powerful architecture critic for the New York Times, and her review, calling the project a New York blockbuster of superior design, is credited with giving the project the positive buzz it needed to get through all the city approvals.
But look, all the promotion in the world doesn't mean anything if you can't actually follow through. And the book makes a huge deal about this final principle. You have to deliver the goods. You have to turn all that vision and media hype into a real financial success. And according to the book's own numbers, the project really did deliver. You're looking at a total cost of around $190 million, but apartment sales alone brought in $240 million. That's an initial profit of $50 million. And remember, that's before a single dime from the long-term income from all that valuable retail and office space was even counted.
This brings us to our final section, and maybe the most important philosophical takeaway in the whole book. What really drives the deal maker? It's called the thrill of the game. And this quote, this one really gets to the heart of the book's entire philosophy. Money was never a big motivation for me except as a way to keep score. The real excitement is playing the game. This just reframes the whole reason for doing any of this.
So in the end, what you're left with is this idea that the art of the deal isn't really about the final balance sheet. The book concludes that beyond all the strategies and the profits, the ultimate reward is actually found in the process itself. It's the challenge, the fight, the excitement of making it all happen. And that leaves us with the book's central, lingering question. Is the art of the deal really about winning the prize at the end? Or is the true art found in the thrill of just playing the game itself? That's the question at the very heart of the art of the deal.